Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Today's video will feature several visual clips from the new Ahsoka TV series, mainly focused on the T6 shuttle that she's now calling her home. There won't be too many other spoilers other than that in this video. Ahsoka's T6 is designated 1974. Perhaps it's a homage to when the first rough draft of Star Wars was completed by George Lucas in May 1974.
Dave Filoni, the creator of the Ahsoka series, is a huge fan of this time period in Star Wars, when Ralph McQuarrie, the concept artist, was coming up with some of the first mock-ups of what Star Wars would actually look like. Filoni's Rebels cartoon series, which is sort of like a prequel series to the Ahsoka series, borrows a lot from those concept art drawings. For instance, here's the character Zeb. Here are some images of the city of Lothal. Even the spider monsters we see in Rebels and The Mandalorian comes from this era. Dave Filoni is truly a Star Wars nerd.
The T6 is one of two types of shuttles used heavily by the Jedi Order during the Republic era, the other one being the ETA shuttle from Cygnus Spaceworks, which in my headcanon is now more of a dark side aligned shuttle because, Baylan Skoll, that former Jedi Knight in this series, is using it. It also was the preferred shuttle of Chancellor Palpatine during the Clone Wars. And so the light side oriented T6, designed by Verpine shipbuilders Slayn and Korpil, was built on the asteroid chain of Roche. The T6 falls directly into line with the elegant design motifs these insect shipbuilders usually prefer. Slayn and Korpil were also responsible for the MG-100 Star Fortress, the V-19 Torrent Starfighter, the Praxis Mark I Turbo Speeder, and of course, the B-Wing. The Verpine species preferred to orient their ships vertically, most likely due to the fact that they had parietal eyes, which are mounted to the sides of their head, giving them close to 360-degree field of view. Most of the Verpine ship cockpits were designed with maximum field of view in mind and minimum blind spots, especially towards the sides where usually the wings would go. This is completely opposite from the more forward-focused Senior Fleet TIE Fighter design that literally has giant S-foils creating huge blind spots on both sides of a pilot's vision. Now, I personally really like Slayn and Korpil's design quite a lot, as their ships not only look unique, they also have some really cool design and functions built into them as well. They're not just trying to make their ships look different for the sake of being different, they actually were quite unique shipbuilders.
Before we continue, in celebration of the release of the Ahsoka series, our sponsor for today, Onasaber.com, has an amazing deal for you guys. If you purchase one of their replica sabers, you can get a Padawan saber for free. Onasaber's replica category features some truly unique and beautiful looking blades, but the hottest thing right now to get, obviously, is the Samurai. It's modeled after the lightsabers Ahsoka uses in the new series. Ahsoka's new blades are extremely unique and painstakingly created by the Jedi using custom parts. While in hiding, Ahsoka collected pieces of scrap metal from all of the places she visited and used those pieces to create this elegant hilt design. As a Jarkai practitioner, Ahsoka's blades were unique in that her offhand lightsaber was a shorter Shoto design, which she often used in a reverse grip, making it better for defensive parrying. The kyber crystals she used for the saber were bled by an Inquisitor she defeated. These crystals went through a purification process, which is why they look white. This is a truly unique design and one of my favorite looking blades available at Onasaber.com. Simply add both the replica saber and Padawan saber of your choice in the cart, and the discount will automatically be applied at checkout. Check out the description down below for more information, and don't forget to use my promo code EWOK, that's all caps, for an additional $15 off.
At 22.8 meters in length, the T6 was larger than your average snub fighter and more akin to the size of something like an U-Wing, although it should be mentioned that its wingspan is even greater than its length. The ship was separated into two distinct sections. The fuselage consisted of the cockpit, crew quarters, engine compartment, and thrusters, and then there's the second part, which is the wing, which was fully capable of rotating around the craft. Usually when the T6 was parked on flat ground, the wings would be oriented in a horizontal configuration, while in the horizontal configuration, the passengers could embark and disembark from a standard loading ramp below the ship. The T6 could also dock while the wings were in a vertical position. When the S-foils were oriented this way, it revealed a side hatch, which could be extremely useful for certain types of platforms or external airlocks. You basically have a bunch of different landing options, which is useful for a Jedi ambassador who is expected to handle a wide range of situations and environments. Now, usually the T6 is flown with their wings in a vertical orientation. As I mentioned before, with the wings out of the way, you have a much better field of view. But in atmosphere, T6 pilots have been known to fly with the S-foils horizontal, giving the ship the ability to generate more lift. The point is, you have a lot of different options, and having that wing go around your cockpit in the middle of a dogfight can be really confusing for your enemy. Now, I know a lot of you out there will point out that these rotating wings are quite complex and need a lot of maintenance and could easily get damaged or jammed. I'm gonna guess those are the same people who don't like pop-up lights in cars. But the T6's rotating wing design and cockpit were deemed reliable enough that it was actually later used again in the B-wing fighter bomber design. If it's tough and reliable enough for a bomber, it should be enough for a Jedi shuttle as well. What is interesting about the T6 is that it's the only Slayn Korpil ship that does not have any weapons built onto it. The Verpines were equally as famous for their exotic weapons designs as they were for their excellent ship designs. Their weapons were specifically known for their lethality. The Verpine Shatter Gun, which essentially was a handheld railgun, could penetrate almost any personal armor in existence. So it is kind of strange that the T6 wouldn't have at least 1 or 2 weapons emplacements on delivery, but of course you could go to the aftermarket and get more armor or weapons emplacements for your T6. And we do see a few T6s still being used during the Resistance First Order conflict many years later. Anyway, the Jedi wanted this ship to be designed specifically for their ambassadors. And you can tell by the red paint on Ahsoka's T6 that this ship dates back all the way to the Republic period, when the paint signified diplomatic immunity. At that time of great galactic peace, that paint job alone was enough to deter most bandits and pirates, as the colors represented the Republic's wealth and power. Of course, once the Clone Wars started, the T6's lack of shields and weapons made it a less than ideal ship to use, especially when you're flying in enemy territory. The famous Jedi Master Sifo Dyas, responsible for the secret purchase of the clone army from the Kaminoans, was piloting a T6 shuttle over the Obadiah Moon when he was shot down by the Pike Syndicate. Had he been piloting something a bit faster, like the Delta 7 Ether Sprite, I think his death could have been prevented. The T6 was quite maneuverable for its size. It also had 3 large engines, but still, it was really no match against a purpose-built starfighter. When Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Ahsoka Tano were sent to investigate the destruction of the Felucia Medical Station, their T6 was ambushed by vulture droids. Despite the skill of the pilots on board, the T6 was quickly taken apart, forcing the Jedi to utilize the 3 ejector seats built into the cockpit. These seats were unique in that they didn't use parachutes to stop their falling momentum. Instead, the passenger would be wrapped in a ball-like cocoon, which would form over the seat and absorb most of the impact, leading to a much more violent collision but stealthier landings. It is possible that these cocoon pods are inspired by the egg sacs that the Verpine are actually born in. There's a cool little detail for you. These aren't the only situations in which T6s would be destroyed on the job. As a matter of fact, the T6 seemed to suffer a very high amount of hull losses per mission when compared to other Republic vessels. Anakin and Ahsoka would eventually ditch the T6 and would use the Corellian G9 Rigger class light freighter they stole from Zero the Hutt. Originally a spice-running ship, the G9 proved to be a lot tougher and less conspicuous. The Jedi would then use the ETA shuttle for their mission to Mortis. But the one thing that both of these ships lack, that the T6 has, which honestly is incredibly important for Ahsoka Tano, is a very spacious interior. Like many hub ships in Star Wars, the T6 features a central meeting room where, you can interact with the crew, maybe learn more about their background, and potentially even romance them. And the T6's central meeting room, thanks to a slick retractable table, gives them optimal floor space.
Look at all this floor space! So much aerobics in here, so many activities!
Probably a great place to learn how to use a lightsaber without worrying about causing a hull breach. This definitely is a Jedi-specific design now that I think about it. Most spaceships have very minimal amounts of room inside, and so the living quarters are usually very cramped. This is definitely a huge luxury. And when the T6s weren't being purchased for the Jedi, they're actually usually being bought by elite Coruscantes for their own personal use. The center retractable table in this ship also serves as a holotable for the holoprojector mounted in the ceiling. It's a great place to conduct meetings. The styling is simple but luxurious enough to allow Jedi to host dignitaries aboard, which was the ship's original purpose. The T6 also has numerous smaller compartments for sleeping. Some of the rooms feature bunk beds. I'm assuming this is where Sabine stayed when she was Ahsoka's apprentice. Another room, which perhaps used to be the galley, is now home to Professor Hu Young and his trinkets. I wonder if he's brought any of his lightsaber parts with him. So that's all we basically know about the T6 shuttle so far. It's definitely well designed for a Jedi ambassador. The only question is, now that Ahsoka and Sabine are heading for that distant galaxy, will this fragile ship be able to withstand all the challenges and rigors they will face? And most importantly, will some dirt gunk up the mechanics and cause that giant S-foil to get stuck in an awkward position? I hope not.